Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod. I'm your host, Josh, and we've got the crew of the Escape Pod together today. And by crew, I mean Blake, Reed, and Wes, although Wes is not staying with us for the entire time today. But we're going to be watching Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Commentary track style, so sync up at home there, prep your Blu-rays or your Disney Plus tab, or do what you got to do, because we're going to be watching this fabulous movie. And prior to that, though, we're going to listen to this fabulous classic trailer.
Luke Skywalker was just a farm boy until he received a mysterious message from a princess.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
She's beautiful.
Star Wars, starring Mark Hamill,
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Harrison Ford,
Boring conversation anyway.
Luke, we're gonna get company!
I think we took a wrong turn.
Carrie Fisher,
Good luck.
Alec Guinness,
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
20th Century Fox presents the most extraordinary motion picture of all time, Star Wars.
Here's where the fun begins.
No legendary adventure of the past could be as exciting as this romance of the future.
Here they come.
May the Force be with you in Star Wars.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So, very special recording today because we are watching A New Hope, which is Star Wars Episode 4 from 1977, May 25th to be specific. And this is a legendary film, all right? This is a film that revolutionized the film industry. It breathed a new sort of life into film theaters around the world in general, I think, when that film came out. And of course you can read a lot about that and what it took to get that movie off the ground. You can even listen to a very special podcast which I very much enjoyed. And let me just look this up here. I think it was the Wondery Inside Star Wars podcast. So the podcast itself is called Inside Star Wars, and it's published by Wondery, and I think it was 8 chapters long or something like that. But it was a fantastic little podcast as to almost like a dramatized biography of George Lucas's efforts trying to get this movie up and running. But anyways, let's introduce the guys here. So welcome back, Blake, Reed, and Wes.
Hey,
good to be back.
Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me back. It's getting up there now. The number of shows I've done with you, so it's good to be here.
Oh yeah, no. Well, thanks for coming back, man. It's always a pleasure having you guys on. I mean, I have a good time doing these things. So my goal is to try and get you guys to show up in more episodes.
Yeah, man, happy to be here.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, it's just nice to hang out with you guys and chat and, you know, about Star Wars and other things.
We already had 30 minutes of guns.
That is true.
Blasters.
I can keep going, man. I don't know if the rest of you are exhausted, but I could go on and on and on.
I honestly, I don't doubt you there. You could probably start up your own Canadian podcast called Canadians with Guns or something like that. But anyway, we're not going to waste too much time here. Let's get right into the movie. So if all of you guys at home have synced up with us by now, we're going to be watching the Blu-ray / Disney Plus edition of the film, which is the latest up-to-date canon part. I know it's a very controversial thing to a lot of people, whether the Han or Greedo shot first, but we are watching the canon cut, which is it's got its own timestamp unique to every iteration of the film, and it is the newest one that I guess would be considered the canon cut and the final cut, the one that's ended up on Disney Plus there. So that, and if you have the 4K Blu-ray release, I think that one is the exact same copy, but I'm not entirely sure. So anyways, let's do the countdown here. In 3, 2, 1, punch it!
I think we should just take a moment to think about the fact that this was the first movie to ever do the crawl like this, like in the series.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask if it was or not.
Yep.
Yeah. So like George actually paid a fine or something like that to the Directors Guild or something like that for not putting the actors' names in front of the film.
Right. Yeah, because that was a standard back in the day. You had the intro with all the names and then the credits at the end as well. And George kind of broke the mold because well, it's all unions, right? So like you have to do these things. And I think this title card is actually, is it not taken from Buck Rogers?
I don't know actually.
I think it might be, or at least that's kind of what George was going for in style, because I know a lot of this film is actually based on like the old Buck Rogers serial cartoon, or not cartoon, live action.
Right. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I know that his fascination with doing serial-based stuff actually inspired this movie, right? Just a story that picks up in the middle of the action.
Yeah.
And has some, like what we were talking about, like context that happens before, but you don't see that stuff. And then you just see what comes after and then kind of how it ends. But
I kind of like that a lot more than like just stereotypical storytelling. I just feel like it makes the whole world feel so much bigger.
And the pacing of the film just goes so much faster because you're being thrown into this story, this action that's true. At first doesn't make any sense, but then if it's designed properly, in which case you can relate to a character who also doesn't fully understand what's going on, then it works, right?
Yeah, you can kind of fill it all in from there.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about this compared to Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings kind of like half did that and half didn't do that, right? Because you do start with this character and this like simple origin, like it's Frodo, right, in the Shire, but then he gets thrown into this world where so much is already going on, and he becomes your guy who doesn't know what's going on, and like learn from his eyes.
And I think Harry Potter is also designed like so exceptionally for that as well, like just a character that doesn't know a thing about magic or the wizarding world, and you kind of go with him on that journey,
even though he's like this icon within it.
Yeah.
Man, I love the detail on these Star Destroyers.
It's so good, man. Like the models in this.
It's so
phenomenal.
Amazing.
Oh, so I really like this movie, so I don't really have a lot of like bad things to say about it and stuff like that. Like it's a total classic to me. But I remember I was having a conversation with my mom one time, and so both she and my dad, when this movie came out back in the day, like when they were younger, like I know my dad really liked it, but my mom was like, "No, I didn't really like it." She was like, "I didn't really care much for it."
So that's when your parents got divorced, right? It was after the screening.
Oh gosh, but I just thought that was hilarious because I was like, because I mean, I've grown up with all these movies, and so there's like, you know, a bit of a nostalgia with them as well. But yeah, I can't remember how old she would have been when this movie came out. But she was like, yeah, I didn't like it that much, and I think her main criticism was that she didn't feel like Luke was the main character. She felt like Han Solo kind of.
This
like,
movie is
stole the...
kind of weird like that. Yeah, where it's like Luke is the main character, but the other characters get a lot of screen time too, right?
Yeah.
Which is good because it almost becomes like a team-based film instead of just a single character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it makes it such an enjoyable movie to watch for like a wide array of people too, because of that reason, right? Like this was also one of the first movies to, I think, prominently feature like, well, I guess the original trilogy in general. Like it was one of the first trilogy movies, you know, like the way it is to feature like a primary female actor cast and like a black guy as well, like Billy D. Williams.
Yeah,
like it was pretty like it was a huge step forward for like the times, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think what I like about them having so many main characters too is that it makes it like relatable for a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. Because I mean, there's all the, you know, there's Han Solo fan club, there's a Luke fan club, there's a Leia fan club. Like for every character, pretty much. Like
Palpatine, you know, the people are just pure evil.
Everyone's got their own favorite characters.
That's right.
It's pretty safe too, because like if you don't like the main character of most films, you won't like the film. But like, you know, you can acknowledge that Luke is a whiny child in the 4th episode, and you still like the film.
Right.
Yeah. This was such a cool moment too. Like Vader choking out the captain or whatever. Like I don't think there's any other movies really where you like watch a character that just like picks someone's up, like picks a guy up off the floor and just strangles him like a foot off the ground.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. I also want to mention that scene looks absolutely ridiculous without James Earl Jones.
Yeah, I believe it.
I've seen the footage. I've seen the footage without James Earl Jones doing the voiceover for Darth Vader, and it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I've seen that too. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Changes the context a lot.
Yeah, he adds so much to the movies.
Oh yeah.
Man, I just love looking at all the sets, just all the detail. Like, I was looking at that last scene there. There's like a whole bunch of stuff, just like PVC pipe you get from Home Depot.
And that shot right there with the escape pod, I believe, was the first shot that ILM ever finished on this movie.
Here or the previous one?
The previous one when it launches out of the tube.
Oh, when you see it burst out
that's
of the...
also it's also why the logo of this podcast is that shot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Star Wars Escape Pod.
There's also something I need to add in here. So, Princess Leia, or Carrie Fisher, through this entire movie, does not wear any undergarments. And she asked George, why can't I wear underwear? And George just told her, but there's no underwear in space.
Yeah.
Wow, that's brutal. Oh my god.
Through the entire movie, she does not have a brassiere or any other undergarments.
Yep.
That's rough, man. Oh, so speaking of Princess Leia, so a slightly different tangent. So you guys know the new Star Wars Squadron game that came out, right?
Yep.
So so you can customize certain things in your cockpit, right? And so there's little like ornamentations and stuff you can get. And so one of those customizations is these holograms. And one of those holograms, I like flipped out and just burst out laughing when I saw it because it's that pervy rat lizard from Return of the Jedi. That's like
yeah.
Java and Leia. Yeah, it's the ones that goes like like creepy. I just
Salacious
monkey
Crumb
lizard.
Yeah, that's one of them. Salacious Crumb.
Oh my god.
Salacious Crumb.
Yeah.
But I I just remember it as the pervy rat lizard. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind. I just thought it was so funny.
Something cool though? The guy who voiced that, I mean, that was his first time doing any character recordings at all, like special effects. He got hired at Skywalker Sound, and he became one of the most famous guys. And he was the one who did the voices of Gremlins as well.
Oh,
same guy.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie. I think I've seen parts of it.
It's classic.
I know what it is, though.
It's good for Halloween and Christmas.
No. There's only one true Christmas movie, and that's Die Hard.
I think Ralph McQuarrie's drawing of what would be 3PO and R2 in the desert was, I think, the groundbreaking kind of image that he did for George, in which case, like, set the tone of, like, the visual language throughout these films. But, I mean, by today's standards, all this stuff with the two of them bickering in the desert, I guess to a kid can be, like, pretty slow. But
it's true.
Back in the day, like, I mean, if you really think about it, like, I don't think any movie could have gotten away with just two, like, droids, like robots, like, just chatting to each other for like a solid 5 minutes of the movie. Like, it's you know, like, it's unheard of.
I mean, even just the whole beginning of the movie till they get back, like, to space, like they launch from Mos Eisley, that whole section of the movie is quite slow, honestly.
Yeah, this movie slows down a lot because, I mean, we just opened up with, like, a battle that was over pretty quick, too. And now we're watching 3PO slowly trudge through the desert. And,
I point out, a silver leg.
Yeah, that's true.
Trying to think if any of the other movies did this. I mean, Empire kind of did, right? Because you have like the big battle at the beginning, even though it's kind of like reversed. Starts out kind of slow, then there's a battle, and then there's another slow spot.
Yeah, I think all the slower parts in Empire tend to be with like the dynamic on the Falcon, with them trying to get away from the Empire usually, because it's not that actiony. But at the same time, the acting really sells those moments, though, right?
Yeah, like that's what's kind of cool about Empire, though, is that it doesn't just go like full bore into like kind of a slow section of the movie. It kind of like flip flops. So you get like the slow moments of the movie with like Luke on Dagobah and stuff like that, and then you do the more fast paced like chase moments like with the Millennium Falcon and that kind of thing. So instead of just like, I guess, doing what this movie is and just kind of slow the pace right down, like it still kind of keeps you interested.
Yeah, for sure.
I love Jawas.
Dude, those are like the coolest characters.
These like random scavengers, those beady little eyes.
Dude, so great.
Actually, that's one thing about the Jawas that I really thought they did super well on in the Mandalorian, which was like replicating like the Jawas.
Oh man, so good! Just like disintegrated and like blown apart.
Yeah,
like,
well, that's just it. Because I mean, I want to know kind of what people back in the day thought about like these Jawas initially, having no knowledge of like the Star Wars galaxy at the time when this movie first came out. But I mean, today, I mean, a lot of people like, you know, we just kind of look at them like, oh, ew, Jawas, like they're kind of gross little things, right?
Yeah, and we know what they are. They're like these scavenger things that show up and take apart your stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So when I think it's in this movie, it's later on when Owen Lars, I think, is dealing with the Jawas. Yeah, he kind of has that disgusted sort of. You know, like he's like, come on, you know. Yeah, and then same with Luke when he gets to Mos Eisley and he's like, he's trying to sell a speeder or something like that, or I don't know. There's something, and he's like, get on, like, you know, and that's kind of shoves one away from his you know stuff or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like. After that, and then seeing Mandalorian, and he's just ripping apart these Jawas, like, you know, I was just like, okay.
So I'm surprised they even did that, to be honest. Like, they can get away with it this day and age.
Oh man, it's so funny though. Like
just slaughtering through them.
I guess because there's no blood and gore, right? They're just like poofing.
Yeah, that's true. And they're kind of these
Yeah.
like unnamed, like faceless creatures.
Yeah. And they're not supposed to be children, as far as we know. Although it wouldn't be the first time that somebody killed a bunch of children in a Star Wars movie. So
Younglings, Josh. It's only okay if you say younglings.
Oh yes, the younglings. He killed younglings.
I wish Bryce was here because he would talk about a lot of these droids. Like,
yeah,
the droids in Star Wars were kind of set in this scene, and if you just look at them, they all just look like piles of garbage that happen to be activated. Like, they're super junky.
Yeah.
This one, I never got this. One was like a creepy looking clown thing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that's so cool about Star Wars, though, just like setting a precedent for the industry and stuff like that, is that like this was, I think, like the first dystopian sci-fi movie that like anyone had ever seen. Because at that point, like I can't remember like how much of Star Trek had been around, if any.
Well, Star Trek was all like brand new, like everything's clean and crisp, right?
Exactly. Like we have this utopian society, like in the future and stuff like that, all united and like exploring against aliens and stuff like that. Blah blah blah. But yeah, this is the first time we see this like dystopian galaxy where there's like junk everywhere, like dirty ships, and evil empire is in control of everything.
The grungy look to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing about sci-fi. I think that most people tend to gravitate to when they think of science fiction, and that's the one thing Star Wars isn't to science fiction. It's like space fantasy, but with sci-fi, it's like very clean, polished, futuristic sort of thing. When I look at Star Wars, I don't think of like futuristic. I mean, yeah, they have laser swords and spaceships, but at the same time,
it opens a long time ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So like their whole story is like set differently, right? And it's a used universe. Like there's like, or it's a used galaxy. Like there's so much history to so many different things.
Yeah, it's like the technology has been pretty stagnant for so long that they're able to use technology that's been around for so long, and it's not really out of place. You compare that to here. Like you can only really use technology for like 10, maybe 15 years at best at this point, and then you got to start replacing it. Like even vehicles.
Yeah.
Like if you have a vehicle that's not a lot of work put to upkeep it, you can't really go back more than 20 years because that point it just starts like falling apart, disintegrating.
Right, and then
especially modern vehicles.
And then the funny thing is you start to go to. This is where like the real world kind of like relation with Star Wars comes in. It's because you go to like a third world country and that technology to them is like new. Yeah. It's like, like our old phones end up like over there as like the best stuff like 5-10 years from now. And
it's funny to think of that as like Coruscant versus Tatooine.
It's interesting enough because Tatooine is like look at this, like they're a bunch of farmers.
In a hole in the ground.
like they're living in a hole in the ground in the desert, and they're buying like used robot junk from a bunch of scavengers that probably stole this stuff. Like it's 100% relatable to like planet Earth here in another country, right?
Yeah.
Man, I love the design of sandcrawlers. It's so cool.
Oh yeah, it's so great. Like they did such a good job in this movie of like taking things and like building into the like something that looks new, but like if you look at it for long enough, you can be kind of like, oh, I see how they did that, or I see what they did there.
It's all kind of practical, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I've talked with you guys before about all the different like weapons and stuff that they use and how they make stuff from like World War II or World War I look like an advanced piece of technology.
That's exactly what they did for all the ships and all the vehicles and stuff in the entire, at least the original trilogy as well. So like the Sandcrawler, as well as like TIE Fighters, X-Wings, all that, they're all made from models of World War II vehicles and planes and stuff.
Yeah.
They literally took apart, like they bought the kits and they just used the individual pieces to just make their own thing, and that's how they came with the design for all of this. Well, they used that to match McQuarrie's as best as they could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
going back like 2 scenes there, that Luke quote about Tashi Station. I don't know how that's exciting at all. It's like, oh, but I was gonna go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters. It's like the highlight of my day, you know?
I mean, it really tells you how often he gets to actually leave the farm.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably been looking forward to that for weeks, just to leave for like an hour.
Have you guys have you seen that meme though, of it being like of like the power converters being like I can't remember what it was, if it was like a female band or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's going to check out with his buddies. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I can see that. It's pretty good. Because we don't actually know what those are, right? It might not actually be like a mechanical thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I can't remember. You'd have to Google it, but I promise you, if you look up like Tachi Station power converters, you will find like tons of memes about like, so, I mean, some of them less appropriate than others, I'm sure. But
quick to point out now, that toy ship he was flying around, that's a model of the ship right behind him, and as you can see the corridor there, and he actually flies that around the desert. He
right, yeah, that's right.
About, flying, was it T16?
Through Beggar's Canyon.
T16
back home?
T16
T16 Skyhopper.
Oh,
yeah, that's it right there. Yeah, you never see him fly it. I don't know if they'd ever planned that at one point. I'm sure George did.
Yeah.
But that's actual.
I think there are,
that's a ship. He plays with the model of it.
Yes.
Is it like a crop duster or something?
It's like a ship, like a low orbit ship.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
It's funny how they didn't end up using that instead of the sand speeder.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe it was.
Well, the sand speeder is like an open cockpit, so they can take shots and then have like the scene and then
I mean,
people there talking.
Yeah, I guess this is more of like your kind of like duster plane, whereas like the land speed is more of like your car kind of thing.
Yeah, I can see that. What's really funny is he talks about later in the film. He talks about shooting. What do they call it? Something rats.
Oh, yeah, Womp Rats.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. He talks about shooting Womp Rats with his T-16. There's that meme where the Womp Rats are like these sentient rats, and they're like alive, and they have like families and stuff, and he's just like gunning them down.
That's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh.
I love that one.
So good.
He's Luke like a total monster.
Oh, man. Yeah. Totally. That's awesome. So this hologram is the one that they recreated with the young Carrie Fisher asset in episode 8. It's the one that they made for Rogue One, the asset.
Interesting.
This has got to be the cleaned up original one.
This is all original, of course, but in episode 8 when they played this recording with the audio, the actual motion of her body and everything I noticed was like so much newer because of course the perspective is different, right? So they couldn't use any of this footage. They had to recreate it. Yeah, so they used the same.
I don't know how I feel about that. I almost wish they would have just used this. I bet they couldn't find the original footage used for the effect, though. That's
probably not. Yeah, that's what I would imagine. But then also, like, I guess the perspective would be off too, right? So because she's facing a certain way.
I mean, they could have just recreated it, right? On the same angle. They didn't have to.
Oh yeah, I guess they could have flipped it or something, but I don't know. More control. They had the same. Ironically, they had the young Carrie Fisher CG in the exact same costume that she's wearing right there. So
one thing I wanted to mention though, that like in terms of like translating across like a few movies. So like one of the things I liked about the original trilogy is that like Luke espouses that he's a great pilot and stuff like that, and in this movie he gets an opportunity to prove that. And he like continually kind of proves that like throughout the films and stuff like that. Like in Empire Strikes Back, he's flying around in the snowspeeder and that kind of thing. But like with the sequel trilogy, like I think they really kind of dropped the ball on that one, because I mean they talk like I think like is it like with Poe they kind of show him like starting off that he's a great pilot, and into the movies and stuff like that they did okay there, but I think with like Ben they tried to make him out like he was a great pilot or something like that, but he really didn't have any moments where he got to prove that.
No.
Well, it's kind of weird. It's almost like with Luke you see him like he's okay, and then he manages to, by the skin of his teeth, able to succeed to pull off these really hard endeavors, like blowing up the Death Star, or I guess that's probably the main one, because it seems like he's just by the time we see him in Empire, he's already trained properly as a pilot for several years.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to like a lot of the sequel characters, they're like telling us that they're good, and they're just innately really good at stuff, and we never really see any improvement or actual difficulty, right?
No,
with Luke, it was part of his journey that you see the development of that.
Yeah. Oh, I want to point out right now that Josh. Oh, you weren't there. It was Bryce and I when we were at Celebration.
Mm-hmm.
When we went to the live.
Oh, was it the day that I?
Yeah, it's the one that you and Ben went to Disney World instead.
Right.
So we got into the Mark Hamill panel, and he started talking about stuff. One of the things he mentioned is in this scene, when he sips the blue milk, he did that because he thought it'd be good for the camera, but it actually was the most disgusting thing he'd ever tasted. It was like this extremely hot, because they're actually in a desert right now, so it's this hot, gross, disgusting milk that's from a can. It wasn't even proper milk. It was like condensed milk from a can they had a food coloring to, and then they had to keep redoing the shot from different angles and stuff. Every time he's forced to take another sip of blue milk so that it would all be the same movements, and he said it was just the worst decision he ever made. It just tasted so bad.
I bet maybe that's part of like the joke when they started giving him all the milk mustaches. Everywhere,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, just a little on the lip there.
Yeah, a little on the stash.
That's funny. Oh my gosh.
And
I'm gonna be forward and admit that this is my favorite theme in the entire series.
Yeah. Binary Sunset. It's the one song that kind of, I guess, binds like the saga, because you hear it echo through every single film.
Yeah.
And
there's so much emotion to it.
Yeah, there really is, and I love where it plays in Attack of the Clones as well. When Anakin is about to go off and try and save his mother from the Tusken Raiders. And instead of kind of dipping off into kind of a lighter-hearted theme, as which it does here for Luke, it goes off into the Duel of Fates sort of darker tone for Anakin Skywalker when he's on the speeder bike.
Yeah.
I've always kind of wondered what that is. A big box that he's standing next to?
Yeah. Speaking of the soundtrack, though, I think one of the really interesting things is that maybe not I can't speak to that song particularly, but with the Imperial March song and stuff like that, a lot of the inspiration for that came from Gustav Holst's The Planets, which are I don't know if you've ever listened to them, but it's a suite of music. I think there's 12 songs. I can't remember, but
really?
You'll notice right away, if you listen to each one is named after one of the planets basically, and it's it's phenomenal music. It's a very well-known classical music, but it's just kind of interesting that the suite for the planets is the inspiration for Star Wars, or the music for Star Wars.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to get you to listen to it sometime. You'll notice right away.
Yeah.
You'll see right away.
Yeah, send me a link to that.
Oh, the infamous Tusken Raiders.
What creature did they use for the bantha? Was it an elephant?
Buffalo. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Well, I'd have to look at it again. I want to say a buffalo or bison or something, though.
Can you ride a buffalo?
I don't know, a farm bred one maybe. I could be wrong. I mean, because buffalo and bison have fur. So unless the elephant was willing to get like covered in.
Oh, they an Asian elephant is what played the bantha.
Oh.
Apparently. Interesting. Oh, there's StarWars.com has an article on it too. It's one thing in the Blu-rays that they added in there was the rock in front of R2 as he's trying to hide.
You know, this movie is like quite creepy too in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's got some like, you know, it's got some moments where
like
oh, what's
the
gonna
creepy
happen?
little jaw was to kick it off. Everything's run by an evil empire. Like I forget sometimes how much like not really darker, but like dystopian this movie can be sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it is PG. It's definitely not like for general audiences. It's parental guidance.
Yeah.
I guess he started going as Ben almost right when he got to Tatooine, I guess.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I don't recall A, why he went with that name, and B, when it actually transitioned. It just he went from what we knew as Obi-Wan and 3, and now...
Yeah. I've always liked... see, this is where Clone Wars comes in again, because when he was undercover as a bounty hunter, he actually went as the code name Ben.
That's right, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
Just threw in as a little Easter egg there.
Exactly, yeah. So I actually like how that started and kind of the backstory that they gave to that, and they gave it a little bit of purpose. I guess he favored the name. It kind of rings short and true with his own name, I guess. But
did he get to pick,
I don't know.
In the Clone Wars episode, did he get to pick it, or was he assigned that?
He just answered the comlink when Yoda and Mace called him when he was in the Republic prison, and he just said, "This is Ben," and that was it.
That's kind of funny.
that was how it starts.
He panicked, and that's what he went with.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh yeah.
It feels like it was so much longer ago than like 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Like what he's talking about?
Like, it feels like your grandfather talking about World War II, right?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Like 60 or 70 years back.
Yeah,
was
but
it
really
15
it's only
years
like
ago? I feel like it
19.
was 20 or something.
It's 19, yeah.
19, okay.
There you go. So Luke is 19 here then. I always thought he was 16.
Yeah.
No, he's a little older. He's 19, and then that's the gap between episode 3 and 4, at least.
Okay. Kind of an odd number.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And episode 7 is 29 years after episode 6.
So close to hitting Obi-Wan with that.
Yeah.
Just immediately stabs him. Ah!
Yeah, totally.
Whole franchise is over.
Right? I'm so excited for the new Obi-Wan series. Take place here on Tatooine.
Oh, dude,
so
yeah. It'll be awesome.
Man, like, have they started production on that yet? I haven't heard anything.
I think it's still in the writing process.
Okay. I mean, they turned out The Mandalorian pretty quick. I'm surprised they're not already on this.
Yeah.
I guess the difference was they had Dave Filoni on it.
It was, yeah, and it was delayed. The series going through some rewrites. Couple months ago, they released that information. Yeah.
It's gonna be sweet to see Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
In the
it's gonna be,
setting.
and he's like aged a little bit too, right?
Yeah,
so
it's actually worked out really well from his point of view.
Yeah.
From a certain point of view.
So this moment, I love how they open up the Clone Wars series, because the very, very first episode, if you're watching it chronologically, the very first episode is Obi-Wan and Anakin have to help Bail Organa on Christophsis, because he is there for political reasons, and the Republic outpost that was housing him has been overrun with droids.
Okay.
And they need to get they need to get supplies down to the surface of the planet. So the first episode in general was focused on Obi-Wan, or General Kenobi. It was Bail Organa sending him a message saying, "Help us, General Kenobi. You are our only help." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, that's just such a good callback," because when you watch the prequels, you don't really get any context to what Leia's talking about, right? Yes, they know each other, Obi-Wan and Bail Organa, but you never see them directly interact.
Not really, no.
So when she says, "Years ago you served my father during the Clone Wars," I love that they made that a thing.
Yeah.
That's like the first thing that they did was bring that into context.
Wasted no time setting that up.
Yeah. That's one of the things I really like about the original trilogy, is when you go back and watch it after watching all of the different new movies that they have and stuff like that, or at least the ones that Lucas made and that kind of thing, like with the prequels, they did such a phenomenal job of tying everything in so meticulously. Like just this scene alone, there's so many moments where if you're in the know, you're like, oh man, yeah, I remember that. You pick up on so many things that, you might not have, if you originally watched the movie years ago.
Yep.
Oh, there's my favorite Star Wars helmet of all time.
So that right there is
mustache.
That right there in the white uniform on the right side of the table, or right across the table there. Yeah. That's Admiral Yularen.
Look at that.
So Admiral Yularen was Anakin's admiral during the Clone War.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he's the British. He's also the British guy that does the narration of every episode.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
War!
This week on Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
That's pretty funny. And we're talking Rogue One about mustaches. He's the one I was referring to that has a mustache. No one else has.
Yeah, and he's higher rank too. Yeah, he's a higher rank too.
So he's allowed to have the mustache.
I guess so. And he's the only one in a white suit. So
yeah.
Man, they casted Tarkin so well. He just looks.
They so did. Peter Cushing is amazing.
Oh man, no offense to Peter Cushing, but he would make one intense Nazi aesthetically.
Yeah, he would. I'm pretty sure he must have played a Nazi at some point in his career.
Well,
in a movie.
I think before this film, his most famous part was actually playing Dracula.
It was that he was in the Dracula movies, but that was Christopher Lee that was playing Dracula.
Ah, okay. Sorry, my mistake.
He shared.
Okay, but let's be honest. He could knock it out of the park if he was cast as Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would.
He's got the most intense cheekbones I've ever seen.
I think he was the protagonist or something like that in those movies, or maybe one of the villains.
I guess he got infected and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, who knows?
Man, I love the menace of Vader. Like, one guy tries to mock him, and he pretty much almost outright kills.
Yeah, and notice that it's the younger guy too, because Tarkin has seen the Jedi in business, right?
Yeah.
And so is Yularen. So like the older guys at the table all know exactly his power. And the younger guys, the hotheads, are like what's this, like sorcery, that kind of thing, right? Like,
yeah, they think it's a joke. Like they're like, Force? What is that? I've never heard of that.
In their defense, in the years since the Jedi have been more or less exterminated, they've kind of
they've been trying to wipe the information.
A lot of people no longer believe that a lot of that stuff really happened or existed, right? It's kind of been like weird, like. It's
like it's a wiping of evidence, right? It's almost like it's like Germany kind of neglecting the fact that like the Hitler and the Nazis never, like the Holocaust didn't happen, right? Yeah. So like it's the same kind of thing. It's like
keenly aware of it there, I would say, actually.
Like, well, today they are, but there was a phase in which they were telling citizens that the Holocaust wasn't a thing. So it's almost like the Empire brainwashing the galaxy. It's like the Jedi are evil and this and that.
Yeah.
And then it comes time to say that they didn't exist, like none of this stuff is real, all that thing.
Yeah, so what you're talking about, so during World War II, during the Holocaust, the Nazis actually went, like, that's why they had like a secret meeting of all the people who like formed the idea of the Holocaust, basically, or like the operations to like put them into concentration camps and stuff. Like because it was illegal for them to do what they were doing to the Jews, and so they had to like form a plan around it, and they like had like documentation that like alluded to it but like didn't specifically say, and so they tried to like play it off like it was a thing that wasn't happening and stuff like that. But
like covering it up kind of thing, right?
They really did try to cover it up in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, my great grandmother over there was I guess like also kind of oblivious to the fact that this actually happened. Like she was never fully a believer that this was a historical event, and she lived through the war.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that. Or if you ask them about the terrible stuff, though, a lot of them will say, "Oh, that was the Russians. The Russians were doing all that."
Oh yeah, so I read a lot of, or I've read a fair few, not like tons, but a fair few biographies and autobiographies of like German soldiers, and I especially find it interesting reading ones about the Eastern Front, both Wehrmacht and SS soldiers, just because of the differences in like ideology and like ideas and stuff. Like the SS biographies are usually very, very interesting because they'll either try to outright like deny any kind of like love for Nazism and extermination, or like they try to formulate it to be like, oh well, this was our natural way of like we naturally viewed the communists, and so we were protecting all of Europe against the Nazis and stuff like that. Like
there's truth to that, because even like the UK and the US, they all were behind the Nazis because everyone was against communism.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because like one of the biographies I've read was a Belgian guy who from a very young age joined the SS as a foreign volunteer, and the SS actually had a huge number of foreign volunteers, some forming like entire divisions and stuff. Like the most famous would be the Viking or Viking division, made up of Scandinavians.
Oh, interesting.
And so they have how they recruited those foreign volunteers is really fascinating. Like most of them have a very like consistent like insight that they were doing it to fight against communism and stuff like that.
I believe that.
So,
I think it's interesting that Mos Eisley has always been kind of this, like as what it is, like what Ben Kenobi said, like a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Yeah.
And then when we got the Phantom Menace, they like George decided not to use Mos Eisley, but made a new city called Mos Espa.
Yeah.
And then in Attack of the Clones, like when he's asking about his mother and like, well, you know, like, hey, where's my mother? And he's like, oh, a long way from here, on the other side of Mos Eisley, I think, you know, like as if it's like a super far distance away.
Yeah.
And Mos Espa being a very like busy, populated place, I think it's like, it's, you know, this must be like the other side of the planet or something like that.
Probably quite a ways, yeah.
Yeah. No, I always thought it was
funny
kind
then to think that it's still the exact same architecture.
Yeah, exactly. Like it rings through the whole planet.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, like, what other cities are.
I never
there.
knew that. Yeah, I had no idea until you told me that just now. I thought it was just all Mos Eisley.
Yeah, no, that's honestly like not that like it's not that uncommon.
Yeah.
But in the Mandalorian, it in fact is Mos Eisley that he comes back to, and this cantina and is like a dead place run by a droid.
The cantina scene. Oh my gosh, so great.
All these monsters, all these costumes too that were recycled from like, other films and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. Stuff that got pulled from other movies that wasn't good enough got put in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was like they gave that guy a turban and he's good to go.
Yeah.
It's like the retro spaceman over there.
Oh yeah. All the spacesuits.
Because George just wanted a whole bunch of monsters, right? So like,
yeah.
I think they were only given like a very small amount of time to put this together. That's why they ran out of time and just had to start pulling from any other sets they were working on.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely convinced if this is completely canon or not, but that big flashing cross by the door on that what looks to be like a generator or whatever
I see it right there.
is actually it's actually like a droid scanner.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it scans for the bartender. It scans to make sure that there's no droids entering the cantina, I guess. But I forget where exactly I read that, so that may or may not be completely accurate.
Yeah.
But I do remember reading it somewhere recently.
Yeah.
Man, so many classic aliens in here. I love it so much.
Oh yeah.
I like. Why can't the new movies play any homage to the old aliens?
I have no idea,
It bothers
man.
me so much.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Rogue One and Solo did a pretty good job.
They did, but they're supposed to be in this era, so it's like all of a sudden, when you go to the sequels, it's like all the original alien species just died.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. I don't know why they couldn't use at least
Even
one single.
In the Star Wars games, like the newer Star Wars Battlefront games, they do a great job. Like in Star Wars Battlefront 2, like one of the main characters in the story is one of those guys you just saw right there, one of the blue aliens with the red eyes.
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
What do they call them now? Duros.
Yeah. There you go.
Those guys.
And the Rhodians.
Yeah, the Rhodians. Like, yeah, there's tons of these original
They're
characters.
so recognizable, right? That's why I like the prequels.
Yeah.
Like, they did a really good job, like
Yeah,
keeping it old aliens
Consistent.
and also bringing in some new ones. And I don't see why they couldn't have done that with the sequels, because by not including any of the original alien races, it makes it feel less Star Wars.
Yeah, it
So
does.
many
On
people-
top of all the other reasons why it doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, you see a Rhodian or a Duros or a Wookiee, you immediately think, "Oh, it's Star Wars."
Mm-hmm.
Why would they have?
Yeah, like the bits are like so, like everyone knows, like it's like, oh, that's Star Wars.
Or these guys are like super well known too, right? I forget their name, but I know they're playing Jizz right now.
Yeah. Oh, so when I saw New Hope in theater with the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, not only was that like an amazing experience, but the whole audience cheered when Han Solo and Chewbacca came on screen. It was so cool. Like watching this, it was a cool experience watching this movie in theaters because I'd never seen it in theaters before. But then like having like the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra there, and then just the like the room was just full of people that were just such huge Star Wars fans. It was like probably one of the coolest movie experiences I've ever had. Like it was so good. Oh, it was amazing. Awesome.
Such a schemer.
Yeah.
Because like clearly he wouldn't want to mess with them, like regardless. So if he didn't say anything,
like
so you guys just charge extra.
Ben Kenobi's like life savings right there.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder though, like how he got all that money. You know, it's like when the Jedi Order got wiped out.
Yeah.
When they got wiped out, did he just like do a big table flip and he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna rob a bank and like.
You're talking about the 15 that he's gonna pay him?
Yeah.
No, man, it's because he knows the Organas are rich. He's in the Organas will pay for
it.
Yeah,
man, he's going to
yeah.
to royalty, man.
Yeah, because like that'll be no problem, right? For Organas to pay.
I never really thought about it that way, but I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not money they have. It's basically what they're going to exploit out of Alderaan.
The Organa felt? Yeah, that's fair. The royals.
I think I have that same jacket. Mine's just not green.
I love it when Greedo showed up in Clone Wars because they kind of made him a slightly kind of mediocre bounty hunter.
Yeah,
they didn't make him.
What's the name? The blue aliens, right?
When he kidnaps the chairman of Pandora's daughters or
that's
whatever.
The name of them.
Or Pantora, sorry. Is the character that's supposed to be George Lucas, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, they made him
it doesn't really this re-edited shot does not bother me in the slightest. Like I just don't care anymore.
It's better now than it was the first special edition because it used to be like it was very obvious that Han shot after Greedo, which made Greedo just look incompetent. Now they more or less shoot the same time. I still prefer the original cut where Han just shoots first because I think it sets up his character for a better story arc because he had no issue just straight up murdering this guy, not entirely like without reason, but just under the slight chance that he might get shot himself, was willing to just take him out. And it kind of builds his story arc better, I find, over the 3 movies. But
yeah,
it's kind of funny that original cut because you never actually see a blaster bolt; you just see a big explosion.
Like special effects.
So it wasn't until like they really added those effects in that it's like, oh, Greedo actually squeezes one off too. But you actually saw a couple frames of Greedo's like demolition like dummy. Okay. So you see, and it's like the most mangled looking thing ever. Like it's so ugly.
That's fine.
Pyrotechnics tore it apart.
Yeah.
Man, look at that droid. It's the worst.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if your family just like your parents just came home and they brought that droid? And you're like, here, this is gonna be around your home from now on.
Hey kids, this is gonna be your nurse. Your like nursing droid.
Man, like, that thing looks like it's gonna straight up murder you in the night.
Yeah.
It's interesting to watch the original cut of this scene too.
I do like how they added the scene too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the guy with the fur jacket who talks about the Jabba, but he's kind of like just one of Jabba's enforcers.
Yeah. And I love how they added this in because at this point now we've seen Jabba in the Phantom Menace. We know what Jabba looks like from Return of the Jedi, and they had the footage, and it just like wasn't cleaned up properly or finished or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, like, I get what you're saying. Like, it does fit that in, but at the same time, why would Jabba himself be showing up to get money out of people? I don't think
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I've never understood that.
Yeah, this guy's not very like. He doesn't have the motor ability to exert force on anybody.
But he's just like hang out in this royal palace and like pay goons to do it, right? It feels out of place for him to do it himself.
That's a good point. My assumption is that the time that's gone by, I guess, between this scene and when the cantina thing happened, is that he got word of Greedo being killed, I guess, and decided to pay him a personal visit.
Real quick.
It's real quick. It's
Greedo's
real quick.
right there.
I imagine that there's a couple hours between.
Yeah, there's two of them.
I imagine it's a couple hours between like when Ben Kenobi hires Solo up until the point where he actually, like this scene right here where they enter in on the Falcon, right? Otherwise they would have just walked with him straight there to the Falcon, but I guess they needed some prep time.
Oh, they had to sell the speeder.
Yeah, they had to sell the speeder and whatever else. So I mean, I can imagine it would be, like an hour or two kind of worth the time. But maybe Jabba's palace is actually closer to Mos Eisley than other places, I guess. I don't know. It's a good point though. Like I could totally see it's questionable. How come he's showing up there by himself?
Weird. I don't know. I think it's odd that Jabba would show up himself for such a honestly.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you screwed up. Like, I feel like he would just send goons to go deal with them, but.
Yeah. Like, just send more Greedos.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I thought that race now is just known to be spies.
Yeah.
Because that one guy.
Like, every single one of them. Every single one of them.
Man, I love the angular design, like the tubes in the Falcon. I love it.
Yeah.
Even how like the to block off the boarding ramp, the whole thing like slides on a semicircle. I love that.
Yep. It's amazing, and like those Star Destroyers just like show up so fast.
It's pretty quick. They must have been orbiting the planet.
Yeah, they must have been. Yeah.
I mean, if you just think about
side.
A day ago, they took on the Tantive 4, and the escape pod went down, right? So they already knew the escape pod had the droids in it. So it was probably two Star Destroyers that were of the same like squadron or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Man, the technology changed quick between here and the sequels. They have to like wait and like calculate and make sure they're not going to jump into a star. And then the newest film, Rise of Skywalker, Poe just like hits like forward on the hyperspace, like jump his accelerator, just like boom.
Yeah.
Boom, like 5 times. It was hilarious.
It's like what?
Yeah.
Be extra fun.
I always hated that.
Boom! Straight into a star.
Yeah.
It's so cheesy.
It almost becomes like a teleporter.
Yeah, I hated that whole scene. Like.
Yeah. Welcome to Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Might as well just start calling it warp speed.
Yeah. It's more of a teleport though. It's like instantaneous.
Yeah.
So, interesting sort of fact with like how the Empire relates to the Nazis and stuff like that. So they've got like really cool, like good-looking, fancy uniforms. So for the Nazi Germany, it was actually Hugo Boss that designed their uniforms. So like that's why they like look so distinct and
The Nazi uniform or the Imperial?
the Nazi uniform.
Okay. Hugo Boss. Who's Hugo Boss?
Oh, you don't know? Okay,
Yeah,
so
please
Hugo
enlighten
Boss is
myself and the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hugo Boss is like a famous clothing company or something like that. Like, I don't know if Hugo Boss himself is still alive anymore. I'd have to check. I don't think he is. But like, it's an entire like brand, basically. Like, they do like tons of stuff, like perfumes, or like I'm sure you've seen a Hugo Boss like perfume commercial or something at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a very modern, or not like very modern, but it's like something that's still around today. That's a successful business.
That's
but that was
surprising.
like originally, that was one of his big successes, was that he made the uniforms for all of like the Nazi stuff. Like, that's why there's so many like, fancy, like good looking Nazi uniforms, is because of Hugo Boss.
Did they make the costumes for Star Wars then?
Oh, I don't think so. I was just saying like that kind of like gray, like flat, like very
Clean.
Type of uniform design or whatever.
Oh, like the inspiration like came from Hugo Boss. Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
It's funny. They actually found like a proper tailor company instead of just going with the lowest bidder.
Yeah, I found. Yeah, that is interesting.
Goes with Germany though. I mean, they were all about like the best technology.
German
right?
German
Quality.
exceptionalism was like a huge thing.
I can see how that would fall into the Empire.
Just
slicks his hair back.
Yeah.
I love the hair stroke.
Out of all the things that they could have done to like, with the special editions and the Blu-rays and stuff, I'm surprised they just didn't redo the lightsabers.
It is odd, right? I was actually looking at some of the poor green screen, like the escape pod, and they didn't clean that up. Yet they took the time to add CG droids.
Like whole CG scenes.
Yeah.
It's like the simple things that could have been cleaned
I don't
up.
know,
just
man.
aren't.
George, he just kind of does his own thing. Is all I can say.
Yeah. Like, well, it's okay. It still works.
George, look, we're not gonna have time to clean up all the lightsabers and add these two CG droids that make this weird confrontation. Well,
You know what's funny is like the lightsaber wouldn't even take that long either. Like it would.
Well,
these scenes are so
you've
brief
done it,
with
man.
the lightsabers.
Like it's a lot of manual labor.
It's a lot. It's manual labor, but at the same time, it's like it's not. When you're paying for like full CG scenes and stuff like that, it's like just redoing a lightsaber blade for like a like 2-3 shots or whatever. It wouldn't take one guy longer than like a week maybe to do them on a 8-hour shift per day.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I guess they wanted to keep their retro look. Maybe George was aesthetically,
I guess so.
like emotionally attached to the style of it. Because like this one, it looks white or yellow. There's no.
It does, yeah. But then it makes me wonder. It's like if he was attached to it, why didn't they just carry through with that look in the prequels? Because in the prequels, the lightsaber blades are so clean.
They're very crisp. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very crisp.
So what do you think of the change of the remote that he has on his ship being used for proper Jedi training, like they did in the prequels? Because they took this exact same thing. So it's just like Han Solo now has this Jedi training robot.
So I think you brought that up at one point in Solo, I think, right?
Yeah, because it comes up multiple times. It just becomes odd.
Yeah, I think they're possibly. I don't know, just like more common for even practicing with stun blasts, I guess. Maybe it's good for targeting practice and then having something shoot back. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I could see something like that. It did just make a little awkward of a relationship of this part of the film.
Yeah, it does.
You know what I think George saw as inspiration for this exact scene? So
What's that?
So around in our solar system there is the asteroid belt.
Yeah.
So there's a ring around our sun that's just an entire ring of asteroids.
Yeah.
The theory that was once a planet that got destroyed.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
So then it just slowly over like a millennia, like millions of years, it got spread out to be a total ring.
Mm-hmm,
Same idea as right here, right? So they show up and it's just like this giant field of asteroids.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
It's a space station. There's still quite a ways out if that's like a moon-sized object. It makes you wonder what is the actual range of the tractor beam on the star.
Well, see, this is what I was saying in Rogue One, in that shot where you see like the laser dish being put into the thing.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned that in Rogue One is the first movie that you really get a sense of actual scale.
Yeah. It's true.
Because in that one scene that we just saw right then,
you don't
with the Falcon approaching the Death Star, you don't really get a good sense of like how big this thing actually is.
Even in this scene, like it looks big, but you also don't know how big the Falcon is either, right? Like it's not really in your head. But I guess this is an idea. In fact, I would argue that this even looks small scale. If it is a proper moon-scaled object.
Right. It wasn't until I saw like a Star Destroyer next to the Death Star in Rogue One and I had an actual sense of how big this thing is that I was like, oh, okay, like that is big.
Yeah.
I've always wondered where that elevator goes and why it's just
a turbo lift.
Yeah, and like why it doesn't fill up the whole thing though. In Battlefront 2 it fills up the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say.
It is way bigger than it. I gotta commend it to the people that were cast as random Imperials in this film, because they're probably for these like lines for scenes. Usually they'll hire people with very little experience, and that guy did a great job talking to Darth Vader and being very serious.
Yeah, he did.
Talking to like this weird guy in this plastic suit, it'd be hard to keep professionalism, right? Especially in the 70s.
Yeah, it'd be hard to keep a straight face.
This just didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, back in the day when this movie was being made, this was ridiculous. Like there was people on set. They had an issue on this movie in particular. They had an issue with a lot of the crew and cast kind of not taking it seriously.
Yeah, because that's how it was. Because at this point in time, most of the films coming out were like cop dramas.
Yeah.
And all the music, everything. Like it was all very modern. Like the music was mostly like kind of like a rock or a like a soul kind of music to it.
Yeah.
if you notice, the eyebrow liner on these helmets are drastically different.
Oh yeah, it's so spaced out.
Yeah, it's so different from helmet to helmet. And I learned because I built my own Stormtrooper kit, and it's actually just a piece of rubber, and the top of the helmet actually goes farther up. So to get it to look like a proper eyebrow, you have to have it kind of hang loosely on the bottom. But if you push it all the way to the top, it has that. See, his is hanging down because it looks at roughly eyebrow height. But if you push it flush right against the top of the helmet, it actually creates this weird gap. And some of them have that.
Yeah, because mine is the Black Series Hasbro one, and they've got it pushed down towards like the mid rim there.
Yeah, which is what the models and I guess like the official version is. But
yeah, the refined look.
Yeah, the
guess.
one they went with, and it does look better, I admit. But in this one with the original kits, there's a lot of play for that height.
Yeah.
That's one of the other things I like is that throughout all the movies, they did a really good job of like still kind of paying homage to this old, like this type of technology that they have in the room right now with them.
Yeah, I'm talking with that in Rogue One.
Yeah, exactly.
Using like the old like 70s modern computing. I mean, that's the best they had at the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like nowadays when you make a movie, you don't even have screens.
It's like touch screens, yeah. It's all or like holograms.
Little green box or whatever. Even if there is a screen though, you don't actually show anything in like on set. You add it all in post by just like making an overlay. But here they do everything practically. So that's a real computer screen that the special effects guys would like to actually rig, so that they could actually show all that. And what's really impressive is they actually managed to get the frame rate or the refresh rate of the screen to match the cameras, because or else you start getting that weird fuzzy look. So if you try to record your own screen, you start to get weird kind of effects. You know, it's like it's all matching, which is not easy to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good
There's
point,
a little bit of
actually.
the one straight ahead is a bit of a fuzzing, but I mean that one there is practically perfect.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's tearing like it normally would, right? With the lines going across.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Harrison was the perfect casting for Han.
So good.
He just legitimately does not care to be there at all.
Doesn't want to be there at all. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm so done with this. Kill me now. He's exasperated with everybody.
So stupid. Just want my money. Like that's exactly the character's thinking. And him as an actual like casted person is like, I can't believe I have to do this.
Apparently, Christopher Walken was the second in line choice to play this character. He was the second choice. No, it would not be the same at all.
I'm Solo. This is Chewie.
No, the old man said he just wants us to wait right here. So that's what I'm gonna do.
You never heard of Money and Fuck? I'm shipped up mid can't even do it.
So good. Yeah, it's such a hard one, but it's so. Oh my gosh.
Like, it's so strange.
Funny, man. Be so weird.
I'm trying to remember, Josh, in that Across the Stars novel, I know one of the characters actually gets posted on the Death Star.
Oh, the Lost Stars, isn't it?
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which one gets posted on the Death Star? I think it's. I think it was the.
It's been a while.
I think it was the girl.
I
think it was the girl.
Who was the main character, right?
Yeah, because it kind of flashed back and forth between her and him.
Yeah.
Let me look this up because it's been a while since
if I remember,
read
I can't remember
one.
specifically, but in the book, I do recall it actually shined a lot of light on kind of the inner, I guess, like maybe not necessarily politics, but the workings of the peoples and the infantry and all that within the Death Star itself. Like even within the Empire.
Sienna Ree, that's the girl, and she's known as LP-888 in the Imperial Navy.
Okay.
Yeah,
and like I recall that even within the Empire itself, the Death Star is still very top secret. Like it's not well known at all. Like she had to go through a whole bunch of different security briefings and all this sort of thing when she got posted there, because she's not even allowed to talk to other Imperials about the existence of it.
Right. That book did a lot of servicing for the series. It was really well written.
Yeah, it did. And I loved how it was from the perspective of just like regular people in the galaxy. And they're like, yeah, I'm stuck on this backwater planet. I'm just going to sign up with the Empire to get off and like see the rest of the galaxy. Mm-hmm. Like they didn't see the Empire as evil, right? They just saw it as basically
like
your government.
Yeah.
And that's probably
and the rebels were just looked at as terrorists. Like
that's so true.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and then the male protagonist, he joined the rebellion, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thane something or another.
I'm impressed with how much you remember. I haven't read that novel since it came out like 6 years ago.
Yeah, no, same here. I just looked at the Wikipedia page.
That's
though,
why.
So
I'm just going off like fake memory.
Yeah. I love when Chewie's just looking around back there.
I know. Like, what do I do?
He's just standing there, like looking at all the walls and the cameras, and like
This stuff's pretty cool.
There's a hole over there, bird debris over there.
Yeah. He's just checking her out.
Oh man, yeah.
The white dress, man, like
makes it a little awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it really does.
I feel so sorry for her.
So, like Moff Tarkin knows who Obi-Wan is.
I'm surprised that she recognized Ben Kenobi.
Oh well, she was the one who recorded the message.
But she said Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then Luke said Ben Kenobi.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
Ben Kenobi immediately, like she knows who it is, and runs out.
Right. I think maybe it's the last name that kind of
maybe
hit a note, because she kind of said it questionably, right? Like Ben Kenobi, kind of thing.
That's more like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's him. He's here. That's not so much like, wait, do you mean Obi-Wan?
Yeah. They should have. Like, it should have been written that way, but, George and his scripts, right?
I'm sure it got more or less changed or whatever.
But yeah, that's a very good point. Like, it should be...
It's weird. She should be a little bit confused. Like, oh, do you mean whatever? It should be a little more natural.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Like Harrison Ford says, George, you can write this, but you sure can't say it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Man, what's with Star Wars and dented heads? Like,
yeah, it's true. It is a thing. It must be George He just likes the look of a dent on the
George.
hand.
Oh, just add a dent right there.
It's always the same spot too, because I think Boba's the exact same location as like.
It is, and in Attack of the Clones, at the very end of the movie, Django gets one on his helmet too.
And that makes me think then that that's the dent that Boba was wearing.
It's so in Clone Wars they blew up Django's helmet, and in the unproduced episodes affirmed that Boba's helmet is his own Mandalorian helmet that gets shot by Cad Bane and creates like a crater in the helmet. So it's just a coincidence that Django has that little dent like in there to begin with, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, it's
so basically what happened was George changed his mind when he was writing Clone Wars.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, the dent wasn't like a crater like Boba's, so it was just supposed to be a little nod, I guess, to like what's supposed to happen. But yeah, it was when Boba tried to assassinate Mace Windu. He actually used Django's helmet to do that. Because he puts a bomb inside of it and then puts the helmet out to bait him in. And then the helmet blows up. So, like, throughout the rest of the series, he doesn't have the helmet.
Episodes.
I really do, too. I mean, like, I'm hoping that they end up going back and fixing,
That'd be awesome.
finishing the Clone Wars.
Because, like, that was a good storyline, the whole, like...
Oh, it's such a good, such a good, like... Because, I mean, Cad Bane has all this, like, Western...
What are you doing? It's magnetically sealed! I already tried!
Like Cad Bane has all this like Western style about him. It's like that kind of rubs off on Boba. So like there's gonna be a whole arc about all of that stuff
to fill it in, because that really shows the difference between the two, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
If Boba is just straight up a clone of Django, it's weird that he would then pick up all these old West stylings.
Exactly, and he gets it from Cad Bane. Yeah. The spurs and everything.
So it makes me wonder then, if Boba then has proper, like, a Beskar gam, like, proper Mandalorian armor, is he wearing his father's, or did he then acquire different stuff?
I think some of the armor might actually be his father's repainted, but the helmet is not.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's actually Beskar or not, because from watching The Mandalorian, like the Mandalorian himself had non-Beskar armor on him that still looked like Mandalorian armor, but it wasn't actually Beskar.
At the beginning, until he got the Beskar from the Imperial.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it makes me wonder that maybe Boba has the same sort of thing going on, like his armor is just...
Because, I had heard that a lot of it's just, like, regular plastoid armor, same as, like, what they're wearing right now, the Stormtrooper armor, so it's all plastoid.
Yeah, or even, like, some other kind of metal, I guess, because, Boba's has got the... Like, his helmet's clearly made of metal, too, because it's got the dent in it and everything.
Well, I don't know if it's canon anymore, but I think it was during the Clone Commando books. They stated that the Mandalorian armor, the body's all Beskar, but the helmet is generally just regular, like, plasteel or plastoid.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, those books are definitely legends now, so I wonder if they'll stick with that, though.
And I don't know if it's just an issue that it's hard to forge Beskar to be in that sort of shape, because the original proper Beskar helmets, they did face plates. They didn't do full helmets, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Also, another cool part about the Commando books and their take on the Beskar gam, or the Mandalorian armor, is it has 360-degree vision. So it has cameras all the way along the backside of the helmet. And then one of the hardest parts of getting used to the armor is the camera... It's like the screen you're looking at inside the helmet actually looks all the way around you. So you have to get used to 360-degree vision within your regular peripheral vision.
Interesting. I guess that's how they can tell if you're sneaking up on them or not.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see behind you too, right?
Yeah. Oh. And that Stormtrooper looks super hunched. He's like, His head's like on his shoulders.
Yeah, for sure. The helmet's like
Yeah.
resting on the shoulders.
No, that is a little short to be a stormtrooper.
Well,
it's pretty funny.
You can clearly see that pole is just made of like rubber.
Oh, I know, right?
Just like bending here and there, you know?
Yeah.
Just plastic.
Yeah, totally. Stage prop.
Oh, garbage man level, the detachment level. On the detachment level.
Yeah.
Han Solo.
He's just like, I love how like he's just walking down the hallway and people just don't notice, you know?
It's all the power of the Force, my young Padawan.
I would almost love to see him pass people directly and constantly go like, "You did not see me here," and, you know, like one after the next down the hallway.
For real though.
That was one of the shots that they actually had to redo, which when he disables the tractor beam, because it was originally written, I think it was in English, where it said power generator or something like that, or tractor beam, and then when they did the special editions, they replaced the text with like Aurebesh to actually like make sense.
Yeah.
Because in Star Wars, English is not English, it's called Basic, and then how it's written is like a different format.
I do like how they have that in there because it just feels like regular soldiers just, you know, they were posted for security duty and they're like just
chatting.
Oh yeah,
just chatting to each other. That's why I love in the Mandalorian, like that one part with the scout troopers. Like
that was so great.
It's awesome.
Oh my
it's so
gosh. They're trying to, and then they try to blast the thing with their pistols.
They keep missing.
They can't hit it from like 3 or 4 feet away.
Yeah.
They're like shaking the blaster because it's garbage.
Yeah.
And they did a good job with that show. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
That was awesome. And they just punch Baby Yoda. Runs into like the whole garrison.
Yeah, I love that. Like, oh, and turns around the other way.
Yeah.
Run!
Do we ever see the stormtroopers use their little leather satchels on the side.
Yes, there's a couple scenes I think where they have the blasters. It's supposed to be a holster.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a holster, right? Yeah. It's like I don't think I've ever seen them use it.
I don't think you ever see it again after this. Maybe in Empire Strikes Back, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think we ever see them like use them too often.
No, because I think it's wildly impractical because they're trying to. Because that's basically the E11, the blaster. It's based off of a submachine gun, not a pistol, and so to try to stick it into like a holster that they probably designed themselves.
The property of E11 is quite short. But
yeah, it is.
And when they're standing around just guarding something or just on patrol or whatever, they're always carrying the blaster. They're not actually, walking around with it in their pocket.
If there is shots with it in the holster, it's not very common.
Yeah.
Also, why do stormtroopers all have like this little grappling hook?
Yeah. They never use it.
No, like this is the only time you ever see that it even exists.
That's true.
Dude, that'd be so cool in the Star Wars Battlefront games if you could just climb up stuff with a grappling hook.
That would be pretty cool. Honestly.
Actually, I think it's a remnant of like how the clones used to carry those, because the clones did carry grappling hook type tools.
I can see that. I also think it's an homage to classic D&D where you always get like 10-foot rope.
Oh yeah. The Empire's generous. They actually throw a hook on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the stormtroopers back there by the Millennium Falcon, standing there like they're hanging out by the water cooler.
Yeah.
Open the blast doors! Open the blast doors! Just backfires on them so fast.
Yeah, totally.
So good.
Now, I know a lot of people take issue with this duel.
It is very slow.
Yeah.
It has aged a lot.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's the one part of the movie I don't think has aged very well.
And honestly, I think George is more to blame than anything else, because he changed how he wanted lightsabers to work.
Yeah, he did. At first they were supposed to be very heavy, and then in the next movie they were supposed to be way lighter.
Yeah, in the prequels. So in these original films, the idea was
even in Empire Strikes Back, they made them they changed the idea.
I think even there it's supposed to be slow, because Mark Hamill himself.
If it is,
Mark Hamill himself talked to George, and he said, like, "Hey, George, can I move it like this?" And he's, like, swinging it around real quick. And George's like, "No, they're supposed to be heavy, like broadswords, like medieval broadswords."
Yeah, like...
That's so funny.
If Mark Hamill's saying that, it probably was at least in Empire, because he didn't really duel at all in this, right?
Yeah, it was... I think it was... Well, and in Return of the Jedi, he's, like, whipping that thing around, like, really quickly, too, so...
Could be.
Like, I think there's just a miscommunication as to, like, who got that information that it was supposed to be heavy. Like, it might be, like, the kind of thing that he mentioned to the actors here and there. Because in Ben Kenobi's hut, he's, like, swinging that thing around, like, almost, clips Obi-Wan in the face.
It does...
Yeah, he had one hand on it, just...
It's true. Within that scene itself, it looks more remnant of the prequel so than it does the rest of the original trilogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think, like, there's a bit of an inconsistency. Sometimes it looks heavy, sometimes it doesn't.
And then, I don't know if part of that was just to give Darth Vader more of an even advantage because he's completely blind.
Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I think it came down to George maybe talking to the guy who choreographed the fight, right? So like the only spontaneity movements that we see with the lightsaber are like Luke and Ben Kenobi's hut, and that's pretty much it. And then any other time that the lightsaber is used, it's being choreographed by someone, saying, okay, you got to swing it like this, and this is how the duel is going to go. So that was probably the guy that had the information, like, oh, it's got to be heavy.
Yeah, it's true. And if they hired like a proper medieval swordsman too, we probably would say, like, oh, swords are heavy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they would have had that guy on that too.
At this point, they probably hired somebody who was...
This is all filmed in the UK.
Used to dealing...
So they would have had probably some medieval swordsman.
They may have been used to using cutlass kind of swords, you know, like lighter things,
almost
maybe.
like a rapier.
Right. Yeah, rapiers. Yeah. There's a movie I've been wanting to watch. It's a really old movie. It's called The Duelist.
Okay.
And it's super famous, but it's known for like really realistic sword fights.
Yeah.
But yeah, look it up and.
As opposed to Pirates of the Caribbean, where they only do 3 moves.
Yeah. Ting ting ting.
Yeah. They just memorize like block, like what was it? High block, low block, high block. I think you just repeat that.
Yeah. Over and over again.
That was all the duels.
I think my favorite movie is like of all time is probably Count of Monte Cristo. There's some great.
Yeah, that's an awesome movie. Yeah. I think this scene with Luke on the Falcon, where he's like mourning Obi-Wan, it just gets, I mean, it gets cut short pretty quickly, but it reminds me of Anakin, like on the Naboo ship when he's mourning, like leaving his mother behind. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And then Leia puts like the blanket on him, and
that's
it's
great.
like almost one for one the exact same.
Yeah.
So cold.
I love this scene so much.
Yeah, so cold. Yeah.
Basically it's an arcade game. Like I love.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate, hey. Especially like in the 70s, that actually would have been arcades and stuff around.
Yeah.
Product placement.
Yeah.
Make toys.
Oh, for real.
Man, that tie was so incredibly close.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad that they kept like this retro aiming like CG or display in
targeting systems. Yeah, it's awesome.
I love they kept it accurate.
Dude, yeah, in Star Wars Squadrons, they did such a phenomenal job with like the HUD and stuff like that, because there's really not that much like external HUD. Like a lot of it is displays inside your ship, and
That's
they
pretty cool.
do a really good job of keeping it like, consistent with what you see in the cockpits. So like on your scope, it kind of functions as your radar, and then when there's an enemy ship like in the center of your scope, you can like lock onto them and engage them and stuff. Like it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, Josh, just to point out what you were talking about, actually, Reed, maybe it was you in the last commentary. We're talking about how the Falcon just had regular blasters, and then Han replaced them with the quad laser blasters, which is what we're seeing.
Yeah, that came up when we were chatting about the Kessel Run.
Yeah.
It got blown off, so Han replaced them with higher powered weaponry.
Yeah.
Because I believe quad lasers are very uncommon for most civilian ships, because they're more power than is deemed necessary.
Yeah, makes sense, because like I guess a lot of people don't actually anticipate getting into a dogfight either.
Yeah,
so,
with like Imperial TIE fighters.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're just going to be fighting pirates.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, for self-defense purposes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love he's got these gloves on for
the
blasters.
So, Josh, do you know that fan theory about how like the stormtroopers are actually really good shots, and the whole time they missed is because they were ordered to miss and not hit them?
What?
You never heard that? Okay, so in this movie so far, like all the scenes that we've had up until the Death Star with the stormtroopers, like their accuracy has been praised. So like when we see the sand crawler with the Jawas and stuff like that, Obi-Wan praises the
I see. Yeah.
Imperial
I see.
Stormtroopers.
I've always just heard the story that like everything Ben Kenobi says is just like a lie. like everything, absolutely everything.
Well, the fan theory that I heard is that so the stormtroopers are actually really accurate, but that the whole time these guys have been on the Death Star and stuff like that, they were under orders to like to deliberately miss and not kill them so that they could escape and that they could track them down and get to the rebel base.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I fully buy that one. More so, I think the funny one, the Ben Kenobi one, I think is the one I'm running with. But at the same time,
I really like
the actual in canon thing is like the blasters are just so crappy. Like they're just mass produced, like garbage weapons.
Yeah.
Right? But that's an interesting theory. Like,
oh yeah, there's a huge fan theory all about that. Like, you should totally like check it out if you get.
I'll look into it. The one that I love so much is like how Ben Kenobi's always a liar. Like even with R2, it's like, oh, I don't remember owning a droid, and then in episode 3, it's like, R2, hit the boss droid, center eye. Like he's like he knows R2D2. He knows all this stuff, and then he's always telling Luke like the wrong thing. Yeah, and then how they fix it later? Well, it's true from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't go by the name of Obi-Wan since before you were born.
Well.
I love that they use that same imagery in Rogue One.
Oh
yeah, so
I'm so glad they didn't update a bunch of that. I hate when they do that. It just makes the whole chronological order of films just feel so awkward.
Yeah.
I also love when Obi-Wan passes down the lightsaber to Luke, right? Like he's like, your father would have wanted you to have this when you were old enough. And like the last time he saw Anakin, he was burning alive.
Yeah.
Like, I hate you!
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Right.
I wanted you to have this.
Yeah. Your father would have wanted you to have this. Like flashback.
To kill younglings.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, man.
So there's a guy here who speaks up and questions before Luke shuts him down. That guy was originally cast to be Wedge.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They actually changed it. They changed the casting after this scene. He was supposed to be Wedge.
Oh, I bet he's pretty miffed now.
Right?
Another one. When Obi-Wan tells Luke that he has to go find Yoda, the Jedi Master who like trained him, but in actual fact, it was just Qui-Gon.
Yeah, right. There's like a gap.
Yeah.
But
I assume he's talking to like
Attack of the Clones by having Yoda teach all the younglings.
Yeah, they did fix that eventually, but I think it's just hilarious, right? Like,
yeah,
you're basically saying just like Obi-Wan,
just everything he says.
He's just a liar all the time.
Yeah, he's just a liar like all the time.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's so good, man.
That's great.
Like, there's so much evidence.
It's pretty funny.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not to mention the whole Vader identity thing.
He just didn't tell Luke.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, he said, yeah.
You know, when I look at the Rebel pilot costume, like, that has to be probably one of the easiest costumes to, like, remake or whatever out of all the Star Wars characters.
No, it's simple, but the ribbing on the vest is a pain in the butt.
Oh,
right.
gotcha.
Well, that's the joke that Bryce brought up last time because he said that he'd made the costume for it. He's like, I'd have to rip your clothes.
Right. Sorry, I remember we talked about that a little bit. I forgot about that part though.
When did he bring that up? Was that on?
Yeah,
that was on Rogue One, right?
Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah,
because they have the ribbing on the what's his name?
Right,
jacket.
all the jackets.
All the jackets on the arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to make things look Star Wars? You add ribbing. You also add the pockets with those steel like pipes sticking out.
Oh yeah, they look probably. What are they, like flares or something like that? You probably just
It's just like random stuff they added to make it look sci-fi. So you can see like the piping on his arm there.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing in Rogue One how they recreated this base.
Yeah.
Like they did such a great job.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely nailed it.
They had great shots of the base and stuff.
Before we get too far from the costumes, I just want to point out like the chess piece they have with the computer box.
Yeah.
A lot of times those are just like from these old 1970s blenders and stuff like that. And computer panels. Like Darth Vader's is a blender. I'm not sure about these. I think these ones might be custom made, but I know Darth Vader's is a blender.
That's so good.
They're people running around in the background with ice cream mixers, so it doesn't surprise me that they'd have a few blenders lying around.
They go shopping to Winners, and whatever they find that works, they just take it home.
Bed Bath & Beyond for the win.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, I miss the old side story of Luke and his friend here. What's his name here? Biggs?
Biggs, yeah.
Yeah, there used to be an entire side story. You used to see Biggs on Tatooine before he left, and he went and he...
Yeah, that's true.
That's cool.
And they were looking up at the sky with their binoculars, and I think they saw like the Star Destroyer fight with the Tantive Tantive 4. Yeah.
That's really cool because I always felt like their relationship was so like, for how like close and like, you know, buddy they were. Like I always was like, wow, that was really short-lived.
Yeah, there used to be an entire sequence of them. I think they like rode like horses or something similar, like out and then hanging out by this lake, and they're like chilling in the desert. And then they like see the Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
It used to be an entire thing. I remember when we were at Celebration, Josh.
They showed some footage, hey?
Yeah, well, I think they showed that, and they had him, Biggs, as well as a lot of the original pilots for the X-Wings were all on stage there, and they're answering questions and stuff.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a cool side plot. I guess the footage was still, I don't know. I guess a lot of it was still like unusable, and they ended up not putting it in when they added all the other stuff in the special edition.
It just got edited out.
But,
and
yeah, it is a very big chunk.
It added a lot of extra stuff, right?
Yeah.
The CG version.
Man, Red 6. our Kentucky Fried Hero.
Dude, for real. Lock S-Wells in attack position.
There's so many like GIFs online of that guy like eating like stuff like while he's flying.
Porkins?
yeah, Porkins. Yeah, Porkins.
I gotta know, when that guy applied to be in this film, was he aware that he was called Porkins, or did George add that after because he thought it was funny?
That's such a George thing to do after the fact.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like George 100% would have added that after the guy was in there.
I'll just call him. What's this guy's name? Oh, yeah, just call him Porkins.
Do you want to know the really ironic part, though? George is quite overweight now.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Oh my god.
He never used to be, but now he's a Porkins.
He's like king of the turkey necks.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, that's great. Yeah.
Man, I just wonder if that guy would have even applied for the part if he knew for the next, forever. It's been like almost 50 years. He's been known as Porkins.
Yeah. Oh man. His real life name is William Hootkins, and he passed away in 2005.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
And apparently he was in Raiders of the Lost Ark and Batman.
Really? Which Batman?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The original Batman, and also as a character called Eckhart. He was also in Superman 4.
Interesting.
Who was he?
I'm most impressed with Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was Major Eaton.
What on earth did he play in Indiana Jones?
He was Major Eaton. Eaton. You know? Like
eating?
Major Eaton.
Man, that had to be George again, just being a dick.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, was he one of the CIA guys at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah,
so
I
good,
recognize him now. You're right.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Man, goes from Porkins
I didn't know
to
he was in
Eaton.
Indiana Jones.
Eating
That's
Porkins.
hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, he was barely in the movie at all. I'm like just that opening scene, or maybe the closing.
And the
scene
closing
too.
scene, yeah, he's in both.
Yeah.
Man,
After they get
this
the
is such
arc.
a revelation.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Before
Bryce
they put
knows
it
this.
into the
Area 51.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The storage room.
Oh man, that's a good laugh. I wonder if Bryce knows
No, I
that.
bet she doesn't, because that's pretty obscure.
Yeah, Porkins to Eaton.
That's hilarious.
Oh man.
Man, it makes me think that George just like mocks fat people all the time.
I wonder. Oh man. I mean, there's all the jokes with like Jabba too, right?
Yeah.
So. And then Boss Nass.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh man.
Man.
Yeah. Oh, see, that is control panel there. Blender.
Yep.
It's a blender.
Wow.
Wow.
Great.
Man, look at the size of that mustache.
Look at the size of that thing.
That's no moon.
Oh, I know, right?
Something they don't really talk about, but how the X-Wings, they all have shields, but the TIE fighters don't. That's why the TIE fighters all blow up on single impact.
Yeah. Yeah, they never really talk about that too much in the films, do they?
No, I don't think they ever mentioned that. But they
That's,
decided on the TIEs to sacrifice both a Lightspeed engine, the hyperdrive, as well as shields to make them as fast as possible in combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the really interesting things in Squadrons, Star Wars Squadrons, the new game. Like the X-Wings, that's a huge advantage that they have is those shields, but they're definitely a lot slower. Like I was playing a Get Round with my buddy and I, and both him and I were in TIE Interceptors, and we absolutely annihilated the enemy team because you have control of your different systems. So there's shields, blasters, and your engine, so like your power and stuff like that. And so you can you can balance all the systems, or you can alternate diverting power between the different systems.
That makes sense, because I always wondered what the benefit of the Interceptor was, because you don't really see it other than in Return of the Jedi. So it's like it could be some sort of improvement, but
it has less like hit points and stuff like that, but it's very fast and it's like very powerful. And so like my friend and I, we absolutely decimated the enemy team, because like even though they had shields and stuff like that, we would I would use the engine, like I would divert power to my blasters, like blast the enemy X-Wings into oblivion, and then I'd divert power to my engines and get out of there as fast as I could before anyone could like fire off
turn around on you. Yeah. And to go with that, and Josh, you had mentioned this before, Darth Vader's TIE is the only TIE fighter, at least in this film, that has a hyperdrive.
Yeah.
And if you notice the code again, the back of the model actually has this giant box sticking at the back of it, and like that's the hyperdrive.
Yeah, it is. It's the only one that has a hyperdrive, and I'm pretty sure it also has shields. But
the
TIE Advanced the TIE Advanced X1. At least I think it has shields.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do a really great job with Star Wars Squadrons and stuff. Like they've made it much like they've added like another layer of complexity from like the fighter dogfights and stuff like that from Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yes, it does. Yeah, by the way, it does have a deflector shield generator and a hyperdrive.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anakin is used to fighting like that, right? Through all the war.
Yeah.
So, sorry, another quick thing I'll mention. So, like with like the X-Wings and other fighters with shields and that kind of thing, you can optimize like power to your shields and stuff. And then I haven't figured it out yet, but I think there's also a way so you can like choose which part of your shields like gets the most power, so you can like change it from your front to your rear or either side.
The X-Wings as well. You can switch shields to double front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super cool, like some of the stuff that they've managed to like implement into the game.
Have you played through the campaign yet?
I haven't beaten it yet. Because I played it a little bit through the first mission or first 2 missions, and then my buddy dragged me into the multiplayer right away.
Yeah, I played through the prologue myself. Haven't really got further than that yet.
Yeah, it's all right so far. Like it's a fun game.
Yeah, it's got a good story to it.
Yeah. Oof. It's a rough day.
Yep.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
One thing I always wondered, if they can destroy the entire planet, why do they have to wait for the rebel base to be with like, around their feet side?
Just blow up the other one. Or wait, isn't it orbiting a gas giant?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that's true. Actually, yeah, it is a gas giant.
But the Star Destroyer also itself can fly quite quickly.
Yeah.
So you think it'd be able to get around quite quick. Like it has hyperspace capabilities.
Star Destroyer,
true, I guess.
Star.
Death Star. Sorry, my mistake.
The Death Star. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I guess for the story purpose.
Yeah. Through the power of story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like what we were talking about with Last Jedi and how they have the ships jump to light speed and destroy the First Order ships. It's just like they had this the whole time.
It's like what?
Yeah.
The whole time.
Makes you wonder then why couldn't just one X-wing jump to hyperspace and go right through the Death Star?
Yeah, it could have jumped it could have aimed right for the thing's core. Dumped
or even if they
Boom.
like made like a special missile that was like a hyperspace missile, and it was like designed specifically
it's just a hyperspace engine and a big slug.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, flawless story.
Biggs.
Yeah.
It's funny. This is one of the scenes where R2-D2 is black and white.
Yeah, from the blue screen.
That makes sense. But I don't know why they didn't fix that in the special editions. They fixed so many things.
Exactly. That's my thing too. It's like, well, there's so many things that could still be fixed that wouldn't take that long at all, and they just didn't.
And like, they didn't even have to replace it with CG. They could just add color.
I think a lot of people were hoping that the Blu-ray editions, which were supposed to be the final editions at the time to have changes made, were that they would have these fixes done, and they just and they just didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, they had like an overall color grading, but which improved upon the DVD one, which arguably ruined the VHS one.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it just goes back. But
that's some weird stuff.
The Blu-ray run, the Blu-ray one definitely looks the best, but it's still got its issues. Because it has been upscaled quite a bit.
For the listeners who watched the previous one, Rogue One, he definitely set the line slower here than the person who copied Tarkin's voice.
Oh yeah.
You may fire when ready.
Yeah.
You may fire when ready.
He said it too quickly in Rogue One.
Yeah.
If he was going for a 1-for-1 match.
Yeah. Definitely.
That ring, you'll notice, was added in the special editions.
Yeah.
What
that
was?
is true.
Yeah.
Oh,
The when the Death Star blows up, there's like a ring that happens.
Yeah.
Like that was
Yeah, it
added
used to
in
just
before
be,
it
like,
just
the
kind of
dust or whatever, right?
Yeah, before it looked pretty lame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how they did it was actually pretty clever, because they wanted it to look like space, which at this time, everything had to be practical. So the only way they could think to make it look like there's no gravity was to put the camera directly below it, looking straight up, and then when they did an explosion, gravity would be going towards the camera, so it kind of had a zero-G effect. I've always thought that.
That makes sense, actually. That's pretty cool.
It was pretty clever, honestly. The special effects guys who worked on this film, there wasn't a big crew, but they did a fantastic job. They were given a very unwieldy task.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that, how like they tried to like retain like that zero G like consistency like with actual like physics in space, but how in the ensuing movies, in the ensuing movies they like completely did away with any semblance of physics with like the starfighters and stuff like that.
Well, they didn't do the best here either, and a lot of that was George's fact for the fighters.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out here, they kind of actually in this version maybe they fixed it, but the original films, George got the live action people and the fake cardboard cutouts mixed up. So in front of the camera was the cardboard cutouts, and the live action people were at the back. Usually in film you want to reverse that just to show detail.
So it's fixed in the Blu-rays.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
That was this version. The original, they had it backwards. Oh, I was gonna say with the space fighting, George liked the look of dog fighting being very World War II-esque, so he kind of just didn't care that it was in space and made it look like there's drag.
Yeah, and that whole sequence when he pitched the whole idea was re-edited footage of other movies and stuff with World War II, like dogfights. So he planned out the entire X-Wing battle with other footage from other films.
Yep, I could see that.
So Chewbacca doesn't get a medal on stage. They clarified that he gets a medal elsewhere because of some honor.
Some Wookiee thing?
It's a Wookiee thing, I guess. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I don't know. It kind of takes me off.
It's really weird that they wouldn't have the foresight to think, oh wait, there's 3 guys here. One of them doesn't have a medal.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it makes me wonder, right? Like, it's like, why? Like, even when they were doing this movie, like, why wouldn't Chewbacca get a medal, right?
It's
like,
weird.
I gotta be honest, I'd never noticed.
Really?
Yeah.
Clearly, you're not a big enough Chewbacca fan. You weren't looking at him.
Doesn't care. Yeah.
No, dude. I'm checking out all the people in the background with crazy mustaches and funny looking hats.
I love the '70s vibe, by the way. All the people in the background.
Great.
It really,
it's so good.
It just fits Star Wars now so well.
Yeah, dude, I miss those mustaches and crazy hair dudes. Like those.
Well, I love how they're bringing them back for like the films like
it's true.
Like like a Mandalorian and stuff like that. I love how they're bringing it all back to fit that
Making
era.
everybody look like they're from the '70s.
Yeah, exactly.
Because really, the only reason was because it was made then, right? So the people in the background, they weren't going to get a haircut.
Right.
They were just there.
Yeah, exactly. So like a lot of the
style.
hairdos, all the hairdos and the stashes and everything. It all looks very 70s, right? But it ends up in the movie, and then it's like it's supposed to be a galaxy far, far away, a long, long time ago.
I mean, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, so amazing movie there. We got Empire Strikes Back, I guess, next.
I don't know why. Like, if you compare this film to like even just the prequels, a lot less happens.
Yeah.
In the film itself, but I don't know why. This movie gets me so much more excited than practically anything else. I might argue Empire higher than this, but between those two films, I don't know. Those there's something about them that just it warms my heart.
Yeah, they're very special movies, and I mean, directly responsible for everything that came after.
It's true.
So yeah,
these are the linchpins, right? Created the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nothing's ever gonna. It's the kind of movie that's never gonna be rebooted or retold. I mean, you look at other kind of mythologies and other stories.
Porkins is in the credits.
Oh my gosh!
It is in the credits.
Oh no way! That's great.
It was probably like a post thing, after the whole edit was made and it came time.
I'm sure they cleaned up the credits. It's super easy to do.
Oh yeah.
What's funny is even thinking about this was like the first film that George did in the series, and arguably one of the first films he did outside of. I'm already blanking on the name of it, but the
American Graffiti.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
American Graffiti, THX 1138.
Yeah. Did those films have blue credits?
That's a good question, actually. I don't know.
I think this is the first of Lucasfilm's films to have blue credits, and Lucasfilm has had blue credits in their movies ever since, including Indiana Jones. I'm actually not sure if Willow did, but I would guess that it would have.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I did watch THX 1138, and I'm trying to remember. I don't think it had blue credits.
I don't think it would have. I have a feeling this was the first one.
I haven't seen American Graffiti or Willow, but they're on my watch list to eventually get through. They've been on my watch list for way too long now.
Josh, if you want to just pick a night, hang out and watch it, I would do that 100%. Because I haven't watched it either, but I've always wanted to.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I can make that happen for sure. But yeah, I think like it's, I want to watch more George Lucas movies that aren't necessarily just Star Wars, just because I want to recognize like that style, right?
Yeah.
And I can already recognize the fact that he's not involved with, the movies that came after everything, but at the same time, I mean, I'd like to know exactly, the kind of things that directly correlate to his movies, It's like, what is very George Lucas, like if you were to take Star Wars and then make like a movie about cars and American like car culture, like what kind of elements from Star Wars would show up in that movie, right?
It's true. And I know, just maybe this isn't the time to talk about it, but I have read, I guess, like a bit of a backstory on George. And even though he was like this nerdy kid in high school, he was really into car culture. And he himself built his own custom racer. I think it was like a Volkswagen Beetle that his parents bought him for his first car. And he hated it. So he hot rodded it. And he was in like this massive car accident just outside of his family home.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, down the road.
And this was when he was a teenager. And because he was so into car culture that really affected a lot of the stuff he worked on and really inspired American Graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they tried to really pick up a lot of that as reference to put into the Solo movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of like the whole mechanics side of things got incorporated into Anakin's character as well. Just a guy who builds his pod racer from a young age and has such a fascination with like fixing things and makes his own robot and all these different things like that directly correlates to George as well. So like as much as Luke is also George Lucas, like there's a lot of George Lucas in Anakin Skywalker as well. A lot of like traits there, I guess. But it's I don't know. I guess like next film, Empire Strikes Back is a lot more like upbeat, a lot more.
You can say that, but the whole point of Empire Strikes Back is they lose.
That's true. Yeah, and I guess
it's just like beat after beat. They lose their base on Hoth.
It's brutal.
And Luke has to rescue his friends because they're like captured, and he shows up, and then Han Solo gets like frozen in carbonite and taken away, and he loses his hand, and like he confronts Darth Vader and he loses. Like it's really just loss after loss. So I don't know what you're talking about.
It's sorry, upbeat. I meant to say faster paced is what I meant to say.
More intense. Yeah, I could get behind.
Yeah, a little more modern. I mean, like you can totally tell as the movies went on just how much they kind of evolved.
They evolved a lot, especially if you look at release order. Because like I'm thinking here, the feeling and the vibe of A New Hope versus really. Not so much the original trilogy, but maybe to a certain degree, but especially every other film, it has a very different vibe. Even the prequels. It feels very different, because I know the prequels, everything's so clean cut, and like even if you go to like Tatooine and stuff, everything, it almost, it feels rougher. Like, A New Hope, it feels a very rough and gritty, and I don't know. There's something about it that just.
I know what you mean. And that kind of goes as well, saying that. The best way
I can describe it is it's very melancholy, and the other films are missing that.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about this movie is that it embraces its title really, really well, because they're like striving for a hope, like they really are. Because like throughout this movie, like it's just. Yeah, it's like kind of a bummer. Like, I mean, he loses, like, his family is, like, brutally, or Luke's family's brutally killed and stuff like that. Like, he's just, like, a poor, like kid on a farm.
And a whole planet blows up with people on it.
Yeah, a whole planet. Like, we just kind of, like, they kind of skip over it a little bit almost, like. But it's like, and I mean, I think part of that with this movie, like this movie does feel very short compared to a lot of the other Star Wars movies, but I think part of that is just because of like the time that it was released and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like, it's a pretty long
because it spent a lot of the time at the beginning letting you know, hey, this is a universe.
This is the context.
This is Luke, and like these are like Jawas and like a bunch of random garbage that eats up a lot of time, which I personally prefer to a lot of films where it just feels like everything's crammed together and rushed so quickly so they can fit everything in.
Yeah.
So it definitely feels slower, but it also feels more realistic.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on again and doing the commentary. It's always enjoyable. But I guess we'll catch you guys next time, eh?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited for the next one. It's arguably my favorite film of the entire saga. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm super pumped too. I don't want to say too much about it. I want to save it all for the.
Yeah. Well, if you got anything you do want to talk about during certain scenes, just jot it down in a notebook so you don't forget, and then bring it up. Yeah.
Like some lines, get some punchlines ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah. See you.
Thanks again.
See you, man. All right, thanks guys for tuning in to Star Wars Escape Pod. Hope you liked the commentary tracks. They're pretty spontaneous, I guess. There's nothing pre-scripted about it. I mean, I do give the advice to everybody on the team to jot down anything they do want to talk about, but none of us ever have anything pre-prepared. It's usually all just us watching the film and then commentating on it. So hopefully you guys found this very interesting, and maybe you learned something new. Maybe you just were entertained for the length of the film. But whatever the case, if you can help us out, just give us a 5-star rating if you're listening through Apple Podcasts. That helps out a lot. It helps the podcast actually come up in search results. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I'm pretty sure it just kind of boosts it up there a little bit if someone were to type in Star Wars into iTunes, so or Apple Podcasts or whatever. So if you want to give us a 3-second favor, that would be amazing. And as well as sharing this podcast with a friend. So if you have a family member or a a friend or something like that is a big Star Wars fan, then perhaps they'll like the podcast. They can shuffle through our episodes and see what's up. If you got a friend who's looking for a way to get into the Clone Wars, we got our Clone Wars Talk series as well. And of course, if you guys head over to our Twitter feed at SW Escape Podcast, you can find various links of where to find the show and a link to join the Discord and other social medias that we're on across the galaxy. So we'll see you guys next time for Empire Strikes Back, and may the Force be with you.